This week in the Bible, we talked about the sixth day of creation when God made man in his own image, and the seventh day also when God had finished everything that he had done. The creation was complete, and so he rested. Again, this rest was not that God was tired or really zonked out after a hard week's work, but rather this rest is an enjoyment of his creation, that he delighted in what he had made. It was all done, it was finished, it was perfect, nothing left to be tinkered or toyed with. Um, Oftentimes whenever we complete a project, we kind of think that it's maybe needs a little bit of improvement here and there, and so our work is never done. But in the case of creation, God's work was really done, and so he invites us also to enjoy it with him. Adam and Eve being made already on the sixth day were then free to rest with God and rest in God. And so, in this way, man participates in creation with God on the seventh day. And that's a wonderful thing for us to remember for ourselves as we rest in Christ, who is the Lord of the Sabbath, who made Sabbath for man and not man for the Sabbath. Another thing that we had talked about was an image. What does it mean to be made in the image of God? And clearly, it's not talking about that we just kind of look like God, since God is spirit. It wasn't like God looked like a man up into heaven before he had made man in his image or something like that. We do look like God physically in relation to Christ, of course. By virtue of the incarnation, God became man so that we would be like him as well. And so, in the sort of eternal perspective of the humanity being taken up into divinity and all those things, okay, we can understand that we're made in the image of God in a physical sort of human form in Christ by virtue of the incarnation. But that's not really strictly what it's talking about here in that passage. So I'd like to provide hopefully a helpful illustration to show what an image means, right? Not just kind of a physical appearance, but that an image represents something. It is the representative of the entity of which it bears the image. So we all have seen images of Jesus, of course, right? There are many different images, right? Little plastic figurine images. These look a little different even. Or kind of the face of Jesus on various items. There's kind of a funny little novelty there. Or more classic sort of icon of the image, literally icon of Jesus, or a more modern sort of drawing of Jesus, or even on a kid's storybook, right? There's the image of Jesus, and obviously all of these images look different, and yet how do you know that it's Jesus, right? There's no name tag on this picture of Jesus. This one kind of has a name tag on it, or the laughing Jesus, or if you see an image of Jesus, you generally know, you recognize it and say, hey, that's Jesus. Or even think of other images, right? This IHS symbol isn't really an IHS, it's iota, eta, sigma, which is the first three letters of the name Jesus in Greek. And so this also is an image of Jesus, in that it represents him. It brings him to mind. It is, a way that we can bring sort of the Jesus to mind, that he enters lives. If there were no images of Jesus in the world, whether it's in the Gospels, right, in the written word, the image of him is conveyed to us that way, or in art or other things. If there were no physical manifestation or image of Jesus in the world, then there'd be no way that we could know him, right? He wouldn't just exist abstractly in our minds without some kind of image to be attached to. And that's kind of what all images are. So I hope you can see that when God created man in his image, he created man to be his representative over the whole earth, such that whenever the beasts of the field and the birds of the air, the fish of the sea look at man, they see an image of God. Not that we are God, of course, but we are his representatives. We are given the authority to exercise dominion over creation in the stead and by the command of God. And so, in this way, we very much are the image of God on earth, the image of God in creation, the created image of God, not, of course, the eternal uncreated image of God, right? That's the Son, right? Jesus is the uncreated eternal image of God. But we are the created image of God, ruling over, lording over God's good creation. And of course, that all gets complicated by the fall, which will be a topic for next week. We'll see you Sunday. God bless.